Thank you for joining me for episode 4 of 1000 Days of Feng Shui.
So first, I packed up my pens and paper. Let's find a good tree to go draw, shall we? This generally tends to be the earlier fate of hackberries. Looks like we've got a stepping stone to a little home here. But,
So here I wanted to point out something that we can observe that's different from most trees is this area here, this knot where many paths choose to go at once is traditionally not in most trees, especially this smaller branch leading into a much larger one going different directions. Classically, the energy of the trees grows from the center outwards, so branches are smaller, but not that one.
Here's a fun tree that I painted a totem face on here once with chalk. Looks like a giant bear. And it would chalk, so it would wash off right before it rained, and now it gets offerings all the time.
Cool cactus.
Here's a fun tree because right here, that knot, you always see a squirrel popping in and out, running in and out of it like it's its home. I think that's just wonderful. This tree and the tree next to it are pretty much heavily occupied apartment buildings for critters.
Okay, I found the tree.
Let's come in with some sketching.
So during today's musing, I was inspired by the paths we take in life and how similar that is to the branches in a tree. And I got a wild vision of how Terence McKenna mentioned how higher life forms might see the lifespan of humans so that they look like snakes growing out from their smaller forms as they spread all over the earth before decomposing. Now, seeing as how we are made up so much of water and trees similarly coexist in these same ways, today's philosophical musing was how all the different branches of the tree and broken paths symbolize the choices we make in life. I love the way wavy lines in Feng Shui represent water, not just like rapids and streams, but also branches of a tree.
Now I'm got most of what I can gesture in for the branches. I won't need to hold the phone up the same. So studying trees, how they flow, it's always been something fascinating to me because I felt like I started with a bit of a stunted perspective with so many hackberries in my backyard. I had a bunch of bamboo and hackberries, so basically a type of grass that grew out of control. Still represents the wood element, I believe. And there's one thing fun we can talk about is shapes in Feng Shui, what they represent. Well, as Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins said, better than a finger in the eye. All right, I'm gonna come out with some ink now.
I'm sitting here drawing my tree and just kind of doing a bit of a meditation, kind of remembering where I read once about people originally, the old calligraphy and artistic masters, getting into a mental state where they are the tree. Therefore, they can do nothing but create exactly what it is that they are projecting before them, because they have meditated on the object enough to know its essence and its being, its nature, why it grows the way it does. And from there you have these masterful artists creating these beautiful renditions of, a bonsai, for example, that is straight out of their mind, maybe even from just slapping hair against a canvas for a little bit. I drank a lot of coffee. Again, as I mentioned in earlier videos, all video makers need to signal that they're constantly drinking coffee, or they're maybe not really creating content right. So it does make for a bit of a shaky hand, and I feel like I'm not quite capturing the essence of each piece of bark yet. So I gotta get into that meditative state, talking, thinking, holding the phone, and sketching all simultaneously. It's definitely quite a jumping jack. So, but let's get down to it. I want to hear your story. Go out, sketch something. I mean, even if it's a plant in your house, sketch it. Tell me about it. Let's talk. Let's continue to connect as a creative community. Thank you for everyone who has reached out so far. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Okay, but yeah, on my way out the door today, my dog's getting underfoot. Even I stepped on poor Max's foot and he did the whole, oh my god, how could you be leaving and doing something on your own for 2 seconds? You need to stay here and baby me and be sad that you just stepped on my foot. But I tell you, right about now, I am really in a very relaxed state, having connected with this wonderful tree here. And for that, I certainly can't recommend doing enough. Even if you aren't great at drawing trees, I mean, try a flower, a bush, bamboo. Bamboo has always been very, very much embedded in Asian cultures as a beautiful subject to study, meditate on, draw. Love the old school, beautiful. Gosh bless. Anytime I look away, I'm just like filming the worst way possible. Anytime you'll see the beautiful works of Hokusai. I would love to. I need to really learn how to pronounce these fascinatingly classical, great artists before I talk about them on a video. But the wonderful, amazing artist that gave us the Great Wave. One thing fascinating about Hokusai that I am given to understand is one traditional thing a lot of artists have done. Classically, I've heard is after their poetry or art is known on a certain level, they decide to take on a new name. They have a bunch of friends over to the house. They throw a party. It's almost like, a funeral for your past self, but more of a joyous celebration. And from what I'm given to understand, Hokusai did that a handful of times. So who knows how many other works we see by these classic masters are actually by him himself. I love the idea of just like creating the art not for the recognition, the fame, because after you get that, your art can be appreciated, perhaps with less of its. People may. It goes each way, openly accept and whatnot, and just put you on a pedestal. And so, anyways, I love the way a lot of the old classic artists would do that. And Hokusai, who is one of the greatest artists of all time, is known for doing that. Unfortunately, can't be out here all day. I would love to just sit out here and draw trees all day. So I am also kind of doing this a bit quickly. I like practicing drawing. Yes, I like taking my time, but also I like developing a style that gets it done. Wish I had a bigger marker, honestly, to really just jaunt through these branches and whatnot. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna set the button. Whoop. All right. That's all we're doing today, folks. Thanks for joining me. Maybe I'll add a happy little squirreler. Yeah, when I first came up, there was a squirrel peeking around his head, and I wished I'd captured it, so I'm gonna just put him like... There he is. All right, done and dusted. There's one more peek at something else. Alright, so the last video I put up was to go connect with nature. I left his homework and anyways. So, I wanted to go put my time in too. This was a wonderful experience here. I hope y'all join me again for 1,000 Days of Feng Shui. This will be episode 4, I believe, counting from the 4th of February. Thanks again. Have a great day. Thanks again for joining me.